Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Julie Mann, and I show men and women, oh, I can't speak today. I show men and women how they can lead healthy, happy, sustainable lives. And I'm really delighted because today I'm joined by videographer and photographer, Stuart Locklear. Hi, Stuart.
Good to see you, Julie. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. So I think the best place to start really, Stuart, is from the beginning. So can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and did you get your love of photography from your parents, and where did it come from?
You know, neither of my parents really did a lot of photography. I do remember running around with a little 110 camera when, you know, in elementary school and on our trips. But I didn't really pursue it in high school. I kind of dropped it. I did when I was a kid with a camera, and also I did a lot of drawing. And my mom would, you know, kind of support me around that and buy me paints and things. And I was always entering contests. But where I grew up in rural North Carolina, and so I don't know. I feel like the arts weren't really pushed, you know. So when it came time to figure out what I wanted to do or to go to school, I was pushed into engineering direction. Wow. And I dabbled around in that for too many years. I only realized I had no interest in what was going on with engineering and all of that stuff. So I kind of left North Carolina, made my way to California via Atlanta, Georgia, but was just on a quest to try and figure out what was going on, to try to figure out what I wanted to do. And when I got back to San Francisco, or when I got to San Francisco, that's when I started, picked up the camera again and started shooting, because it's such a lovely city.
And did you know when you picked it up that this was it then?
I've always had an interest in fashion and clothing and design. And so along with the camera, that kind of worked really well. I met a friend here who was really into clothes and fashion and kind of wacky stuff. So I always had somebody to photograph. And so that was the initial interest with photography. I did as much as I could on my own, and then I started assisting. So I loved it. Once I got into it, you know, it kind of was just a medium that worked for me. I could, you know, put together a scene and document it. It didn't have to be anything permanent, you know, like architecture or like fashion design. I had an interest in that, but I think the photography medium really worked well for me, just because it was a little bit more immediate than those things.
So I have to ask you about the wacky, Stuart, because I love a bit of wacky. So what's the wackiest thing you've ever worked on?
The wackiest thing I've ever worked on. Wacky. I don't know if it was so much wacky. I had an architectural photographer that I assisted for quite a few years, and we end up at Cape Canaveral. So maybe not wacky, but super interesting that before 9/11. So we were running around the base. We were shooting some of the shuttles. We got to walk out onto the walk where the launches take off and the rail that they go across. So not a wacky job, but one of the more interesting jobs I remember.
Wow, yeah. And have you got, what's the best shot, do you think, that you've ever taken? You've probably got a few, but is there one that's really, you know, that's the one?
I don't think so. I shoot in so many different arenas. So I feel like I have favorites in all of those places. I don't know if I could choose one.
Well, that's a sign that they're all pretty good. Hey, so going back to life in general, obviously, you know, it can be challenging. We're faced with different challenges every day, personally, professionally. What would you say has been the biggest challenge that you've ever had to overcome?
I don't know if I've overcome it. Growing up in the South, I was raised Southern Baptist, and I knew I was different early on, but I didn't know exactly what was going on. And I'm gay, and I had to figure that out in some of those years. And I often think it would have been a lot easier if I know folks had to know, maybe my parents, but just where I grew up, and the time I grew up, it wasn't really accepted. So I think it would have been nice if somebody could have just told me what was going on, and I could have moved on and focused on some other things, but I kind of trying to figure that out. That was an interesting time.
Yeah, interesting is one word for it. Absolutely. Yeah, I can imagine there's a whole lot of other words you could use. So
right.
Tell us about the work you actually do now, Stuart, because obviously you do videography as well. So tell us more about the stuff that you're working on right now.
Right now, well, before COVID, primarily most of my work, I mean, in the beginning, I did everything: product, architecture, food, people. But eventually the people work kind of overtook everything. And so some of the other stuff kind of dropped to the wayside a bit, even though on occasion I'll shoot some, product or jewelry or something. But up until COVID, we were all people. I was doing a lot of content for websites, and that could be headshots or environmental portraiture, a lot of portraiture. And then the flip side of that is events. And so I had a pool of photographers that I could reach out to. I was booking corporate conferences and workshops and things. And so I had a pool of photographers that I could reach out to and get them to help cover those gigs. But since COVID has rolled around, that kind of put the kibosh on, a lot of the people photography, even though it's picked up again. And we're still doing that. But the last few weeks, we've been working on construction sites. I've got a client where I've done a lot of their portraiture. They always send over their new folks to me, but they reached out wanting to get some video documentation of some of their sites. And so we did a drilling video recently, which was exciting, actually. And this past weekend, I was working 2 days on the construction site doing time-lapse videography, where they're erecting a huge crane, and they wanted to document all that. So I think moving forward, and we're back now with Omicron, and trying to see what's going to happen in the new year regarding work. We may be in a similar place around my people and photography, and not wanting to get people into the studio and those kinds of things. But construction really didn't miss a beat last year or the last couple of years. Most of it's, well, they start outdoors anyway. But they had a couple of weeks off during COVID, and then they just continued. So I think that's an arena that I'll be marketing more towards moving forward in the new year. There's a lot of building going on in San Francisco, and so that is one avenue.
Brilliant. I absolutely love time-lapse photography. It's just so fascinating. Did you find, when you're in those construction sites, that your interest in engineering kind of reared its head again? Was it more interesting because you had some knowledge of?
It was fascinating, seeing all the stuff that's going on. When I'm with my camera and I'm on these jobs, I'm always trying to get a shot that's interesting and something I've not seen, or something that's unique, or so that's always a challenge, whether I'm shooting with a person or whether I'm shooting an event or a product. It's just trying to get something interesting and cool. And so on the construction site, there's so much stuff going on, so I found it easy to shoot and be engaged in that. From a visual perspective, I didn't really care or tap too much into the engineering while I was there.
Got lost in your photography. I guess that when you're in it, doing what you're doing, you have to have a sense of curiosity, because if you're looking for the shot you haven't taken,
right, then
it's about engaging, I guess, with your environment in a way that you perhaps haven't before, to see something different. Yeah,
surely. And then that can be more of a challenge if it's something that I have shot before, and then it's just like, oh, how can I do this differently or make this more interesting than I did last time? So there's always a bit of a challenge, or the curiosity, like you said, is just trying to get in and trying to get something that's exciting and something that's unique, and trying to get something that we haven't seen, or what somebody hasn't already shot.
In your opinion, Stuart, what do you think makes a good photographer?
Oh, a good photographer. Outside of the technical skills, like I said, I work a lot with people. And so I think you have to have, some skills working with folks. My background in the years from North Carolina, Raleigh, where I was going to school, to making my way out to San Francisco. I was in the restaurant business. I was a waiter, a server. And I obviously like to chat and talk. But waiting tables, you have to kind of anticipate needs. You know, you back in the day, I don't know how so much anymore with COVID, and I think some of that stuff has changed. But back when I was in the restaurant business, you know, you kind of end up building a little bit of a relationship, rapport with your customers. You know, short, of course, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours if it was long. But you still had that, you know, I worked on building a rapport, and you want folks to be comfortable, enjoy what they're doing, enjoy their time and experience. And it kind of rolled into my photography really well too, because, you know, it's similar. I have folks that I've never met, most likely, walking into my space. And, you know, we want to make this experience comfortable and relaxing. And, you know, most folks don't like getting their photograph taken. And so most of my people on my team, my makeup artists and assistants, a lot of those guys are also from the restaurant business. So we all kind of come from hospitality industry, and I think it really works well in our photography.
So now that people have, you know, these high-tech phones that can take.
I was going to say, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I'm not sure if I ever answered a question on what a good photographer is. But where I was leading with that long story, it's I think for me, working with people, I think a good photographer really has to get folks at ease as much as they can. And then, you know, try to get folks comfortable and relaxed so that you can try to get some natural or more natural expressions.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a lot of people that absolutely hate having their photograph taken. It's, you know, it's painful. It's painful to be around. Yeah, I've forgotten where I am now. I've forgotten my story. Yes, that's right. People now have very high-tech phones, not me particularly, but a lot of people do, that take great photos. I mean, how has that affected the photographic industry? Has it?
I'm assuming it has. I mean, I try to, you know, I'm out there hustling, trying to get work and trying to stay busy. We get a lot of our work word of mouth and referrals, which is great. But I mean, the phones are amazing. Every time Apple releases one, I'm just like, oh my God, you're really making my life challenging over here. You know, the latest update is where they can have the blurry background. And you know, to have that with my equipment, you know, I've got $2,000, $3,000 camera, $2,000 lens, you know, and now with Apple phone, you can kind of hit a button and you've got the, you know, similar effect. So it's frustrating, you know, if someone's got a great eye, the phones are incredible. So they can certainly get great shots. But, you know, not everyone is so creative, and you know, not everyone's going to be able to get great shots, even though you've got a great camera and a great phone. So, you know, there's still room.
There's still room for you.
There's still room for me.
Yeah, and I've got all your links, Stuart, below this video. So please, everyone, go and check Stuart out. So of all the things that you've done, so not necessarily, you know, that great shot, of all the things you've ever done, what are you most proud of in your whole life?
Oh, I'm not sure if I've reached that point. I mean, you know, I left a rural town. All of my folks and siblings are still back in North Carolina, so I'm kind of proud that I branched out and got out to check out the world. I love traveling. I guess it's kind of becoming more work related. For a while when I was traveling, I worked so much here, I didn't really want to bring a camera on the trip so that I could just relax and not have to worry about, you know, gear the entire time. Since then, I do bring gear, but I've hit a few countries up, and so I love that, and I've got a lot more countries on my list, and so maybe traveling.
Brilliant. So apart from traveling, Stuart, what do you do when you're not working and you put the cameras down?
Trying to chill out somewhere. I'm over at my friend's place right now. They have a steam room and a hot tub. So
very nice.
Yeah, so it's not a bad place to come house and pet sit. And then yeah, besides, I mean, I've always got a trip in mind or a place that I want to go. So for me, if I'm not working and I've got the funds and I've got the time, I'm usually trying to plan to go somewhere. Unfortunately, right now with COVID, that's kind of, you know, messing up my travel plans. But I've still got my list going.
Fabulous. One last question. When you're no longer on this planet, how would you like to be remembered?
Oh, someone that was fun, generous, creative, supportive, funny.
Fantastic. I've so enjoyed talking to you, Stuart. So
Thank
as I
you
said,
so
everyone,
much.
please check out Stuart's link. So all there is for me to say is Stuart Locklear, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you so much for having me, Julie. It was awesome.